Joining me is John Linder. John farms just out of Edison, Ohio. That's in Morrow County. And John, first of all, some people might already recognize your name. That would be from National Tractor Pulling. How many years did you pull on a national circuit?
Well, brother and I have been tractor pulling for 35 years, and for quite a few of those we've been in the national circuits, but we've also chose to stay in the state as well. So it's been a nice mix for 35 years.
And how many years have you been active on the Ohio and then National Corn Board?
This is my fourth year on the Ohio Corn Marketing Program Board, and the third year on the Trade Policy and Biotech Action Team for the National Corn Growers.
And just recently, you got back from a trip to Cuba. As you plan or participate in that kind of a trip, who all was on the trip and what kind of a group size went down to Cuba?
Well, that's interesting. Couldn't name the nearly 100 people that were on the trip. It was the U.S. Ag Coalition for Cuba put this effort together, and they brought in the commodities, corn and soy, and myself, I was the only corn farmer for the National Corn Growers. We did bring a staff with us, Jennifer Myers out of D.C., and she was a real asset to this learning journey. There were 4 different universities. There were, like I said, soy. There was Farm Bureau. There were ag departments from different states. There was Governor of Missouri who had a big push in this effort as well.
As you look at this, the effort at this point is by the Ag Coalition to try to embrace the idea of opening up trade with Cuba. There's quite an opportunity for ag. Was much of that discussed, or was it merely, let's see what's here and take home our observations?
Well, that, as I said, they'd like to call it a learning journey, which to me it sounded like I was in grade school again, but it ended up really being just that. There is so much to gather from an experience like this. When you go in as a group of like-minded individuals to discover where ag is today in Cuba and where ag is headed in Cuba. And for a corn grower, I'm really proud to say that it's pretty amazing. In 2008, we had 100% of the Cuban corn business at 800,000 metric tons. They're at 900,000 today, and we've dwindled to being a supplier of 200,000. So that probably confuses some with an embargo. How do we supply corn? Well, we are just that. We are permitted to sell. We're not allowed to trade. So I can go down there and I can find U.S. corn and soy, but I can find a Coca-Cola really easily. But you can't come up here and find any Cuban products to be purchased. That's the embargo part. You're not allowed to trade. We can't purchase from Cuba.
And even the idea that we can send some products to Cuba, the restrictions have been put on it, make it pretty difficult, and a lot of that's been around the financing world.
Well, that's where we'd really like to see the level playing field, and obviously Congress will have to make this decision. Is this the time to lift the embargo, or is this the time to keep it in place? So we'll deal with whatever decision they choose, but at this point, we're losing out as suppliers of corn to Cuba. In just that, it's not a level playing field. The others trade with them. The financial restrictions of banking aren't imposed on those other countries. So we're definitely at a disadvantage where we have a very acute advantage of actually being only 2 hours on the water to ship corn to Cuba. So we should be a preferred supplier, but when you can't trade, then that becomes the issue.
Now let's shift to the John Linder that went and made observations. And what did you see? What were you surprised at? What did you like? What did you not like?
I really can say that there was nothing that I really felt uncomfortable with. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful place. Tropical. The fruits, the food, just excellent. The scenery was phenomenal. It is a land lost in time. There's a lot of decay. A lot of concrete structures, which, we can't use them here as much because of the freezing and thawing, but down there they still have the salt water that caused a lot of decay. Their economy hasn't allowed them to keep that up. But a beautiful city, Havana, got out into the countryside. It's a wonderful countryside. Stopped on my aquaculture tour for a lunch where we pulled a bus off the road between restaurant and the road, and we ate really well. So food is excellent. I preferred the seafood. Obviously, the opportunity for fresh seafood, it's like eating Lake Erie perch in the summertime or walleye. You just got to take advantage of it.
From a technology standpoint, one of the first things I asked you when I got here was, were they a 1930, 40, 60, 90? And you said yes.
That's exactly right. The aquaculture is an amazing, what we saw is a research facility that is a joint venture with the Norwegians very, very high tech. I had no idea what goes into an open water tank of fish, and it's a net tank, and 2,500 beautiful cobia fish that I'd love to take home and cook that night. But they are very high tech in their research as far as the rate of gain, and their monitoring everything from the effluent going out the bottom to the food going in the top, and the death loss is so minimal. Of 2,500, they'd only lost 14 in 3 months. So it's very, very high tech, and it has to be cleaned. Pristine waters, but you still have to keep the nets clean.
So that's on the high tech. The other end was as big a surprise.
Well, it really was. I didn't anticipate. Yeah, I should say I probably anticipated seeing a Soviet tractor sitting in the corner of the field growing up in weeds. Well, I saw Soviet tractors in the corner of the fields, but they weren't growing up in weeds. They were really kept clean. Everything is used. The weeds are not allowed to flourish. They would harvest everything they could for feed, but that tractor was waiting for parts. If it could get a part in a year or two, they'd probably use it again. But what was a surprise to me, the same field was being plowed by cattle.
And Cuba's about how big?
It was related to me, and I apologize, I didn't look it up, but they said it's the equivalent of Ohio. 11 million people, I believe.
And you look at size structure, that's not, you think about it, it's not that hard to get across, but transportation and some of the infrastructure, an issue there as well.
The infrastructure would be an issue, although we traveled on a 4-lane highway, traveled in a tunnel under the port of Havana, which surprised me rather than going through the city, we went under the tunnel on a 4-lane highway and out in the countryside on a 4-lane highway that it was our bus, it was semis, it was cars, it was donkey carts, it was people walking, very, very busy, and a lot of pedestrians. Very wide, expansive road. And we turned and went south to the Bay of Pigs. It was a 2-lane highway, and it became rural. Very, very, very much a blacktop road, but it was nowhere near as smooth.
As you come home for this with a group of 100, obviously you'll be reporting or have already reported to the National Corn Board. What's your observation? Is this something we pursue? As we just let politics run its course and see, or how do you see this developing?
Well, I think the politics will have to answer their own course. We see this as an opportunity. I believe that everyone on the trip saw more opportunity than they imagined, not just in each of the particular commodities, but with trade, the boost to both economies, the opportunity for jobs. If John Deere and Case IH and AGCO and all the companies, Caterpillar, decide to go to Cuba, then that's jobs here. So, it's an uplift to our economy as well as there, but we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see, and it's not far away. I've been visiting with John Linder, who recently returned from Cuba, part of a big trip to better understand our opportunities, and he farms, or will farm sometime later this year, whenever it dries up, in Morrow County.